about building resilience and well-being. Again, going back to the challenges you may encounter on a daily basis, but clearly over the last year, sometimes you just need to take a break and look at how do you take care of yourself first. And it's a simple breathing exercise with 3 different words, but it allows us to center ourselves. It may be that you just came out of a difficult case. It may be that somebody was late and the supplies weren't available when you needed to get them into the room before the surgery. It could be anything, but sometimes you just need to take a break because we can get compassion burnout, right? So this is a simple breathing exercise where you would just, and we can do it together. We just take this deep breath in, because breathing in compassion really restores the sense of safety. And you just think about phrases such as, may I feel at ease, may I feel kindness, and may I feel peace and relief. And that's what you would be thinking or saying when you're exhaling, so that you can go back to trying to restore your own self before you run into the next room, right? So this can happen anytime. It can happen multiple times a day, but compassion is one, especially for nurses, that you may need to really breathe in and think about and try to get yourself back to a neutral position. The other 2 words that you can focus on, one is optimism. Again, really thinking about that positive, trying to keep positive, trying to see the positivity in others and show others how to maybe see the positive. And again, optimism, breathing in optimism restores a sense of security. So it may be where you take that deep breath in and you exhale thinking or saying, I know I can make it work today. We can see it will get better. I trust I can make this work. This may be when you're going into a difficult case. There may be maybe some things happened previously that you just need to take that moment and really bring that positive energy back in. And then lastly, it's about gratitude. And this you can do at the end of the day. It's so helpful at the end of the day when you're knowing what an impact you made. It may be that deep breath in and you just say, you know what, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I can do something that means so much, that has so much impact. I'm grateful for the plan I have, and I'm grateful for this day. It does not have to be those phrases, but something that really airs in gratitude can really help with knowing that you have made a difference and knowing that you've seen something good in what you did in the day. So that's just something that allows us to focus on you versus everything that's asked of you all day long. You can pause and do this anytime, and it just takes a minute. So now we think about our known service standards, and it's really all about, and I know the work you do, so much of the work you do is interacting with other departments to get things moving in the right direction, whether it's supplies, whether it's the PACU, it's a recovery room, it might be whatever it is. And it's also dealing with each other in that OR. It's dealing with the physicians and your colleagues and the techs, and it's all about this kind greeting and noticing needs, owning it, wowing them, and next steps. And the patient clearly is front and center in your world, but oftentimes the communication that you're doing is so much more focused around your team in the role you play or the other departments you're working with. So we talk about, why are we doing this now? Quite honestly, in last year we experienced a kind of a flat line in our likelihood to recommend Keck Medicine of USC as a place of choice. And Keck is top 20 in the nation, and that's in clearly the single percentile in the country, because there's over 400 hospitals here in California. So think of the thousands and thousands. So we are way in the top of that. So the patients really deserve that, and each other deserve that 5-star experience. So we looked at the surveys, which go out to every patient after they've had any procedure, any surgery, any ambulatory visit, and we looked at it to see what was making the difference. And quite honestly, it was around things that embody the known. So what did we do to bring it back front and center? We looked at it in 3 different ways. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to train on the known and then we're going to walk away and it'll be great. Now we really are going to sustain that, and by really focused on our key drivers. And our key drivers are those that are the highest weighted things that are measured in a patient experience. And then we increase data transparency so you can all see every month, performance data goes out to all the leaders in the hospital, and it can be shared during huddles, during these in-services, and it allows you to see how well Keck Medicine is doing on likelihood to recommend the hospital, what are our patients saying, and what's our trend line. And then going back to the known and saying, what are we doing well? How well is our team working together? How well are we working as an organization? And then you can basically know your cause, which is your behaviors, and the effect, which is what the scores tell us. And then it's really going back to the expectation of prioritization of known, and that known is practiced on every interaction, every time. And then we do have some ambassadors. We have about 200 of them across the organization, and we would love anybody to join that team. But we also have our ambassadors work with their leaders and within their departments to identify and tell us some great best practices so that we can spread them across the organization. Then there's leader rounds. Leader rounds are where team members are actually meeting either with a patient or a team member, staff member, once a month, just to talk about, how well are we modeling the known, what's going on. If they're talking to a patient, it's how are you feeling about, the service you're getting and things like that, and allows us to then create actionable solutions. So this is guiding principles that will help sustain the known over time, right? Right, so today it's really about understanding the known. It's really about applying it in every interaction and then looking at our data and tells us how well we're doing. So again, key drivers, which I'm going to show you Keck's key drivers. They are ones that we can clearly own. They have this consistent communication theme. It's around courtesy and respect. It's about care team listening carefully and explaining clearly. And again, this may not be to the patient until they're going to sleep, but it may be that this is across the team, that everybody's, working together to ensure that these behaviors are showing up. And then it's care team concern, the authenticity in our care team concern about each other and those customers we also deal with, the internal customers, the other departments. So when this shows up, when it's measured, basically if this is done well, then the patients are more likely to recommend Keck Medicine of USC. So that's the goal. So when we look at our performance data, you can see here for both Keck and Norris for year to date. Well, this isn't year to date. This is fiscal year to date, which starts last June. Both on the fiscal year to date, we are exceeding targets for both hospitals on likelihood to recommend. Always room for improvement, but clearly the green is good. And then there's a monthly trend line, which allows us to look at it over time and see when we see these blips, what did we do well when we see them in an upward trend? And if you see them going in a different direction, then it's how do we course correct? And to do that, you look at the comments that the patients might give us on a monthly basis, which is on the bottom right, and you would look at the known service standards and maybe come up with some nuggets from there to say, what do we want to focus on this month? The units on the right, you can see that they actually get scores based on their unit. And for 6 South, they have an overall of 4 stars on the 5-star journey. And then there's a list that's showing how patients rated them in different behavior categories. So that just allows you to see what our data looks like. And it's all formulated through our patient surveys by a vendor called Press Ganey. So we think about who impacts our key drivers. And it's easy to think that it's just the doctors and the nurses that are all patient facing, but it's quite honestly, everybody in the organization, whether you work on the back end or the front end. And I like to ask, is anybody recognize anybody, because you're in the hospital wandering around probably on breaks or lunches, do you recognize anybody in here and the difference they might make? Anybody want to?
I can go first. So when I did this original training, I recognized almost everybody in the slide, but I especially recognize, and I hope his name is Mario. I really think it is. But what I took home is that I love him. I think he's so great. I always like go to his line in the cafeteria, and he always makes me feel like so special. And during our bigger presentation with some other people, everybody else was saying the same things. So I thought that he only thought I was amazing, but he makes every single person feel that way. And I thought that was really cool. And it kind of made me think about, okay, how can all of our interactions, we can do our best to try to like make that person feel special. And it is doable. He does it on a daily basis, and he's so happy and joyful, and it really like resonated with me that he makes everybody he interacts feel that way.
Yeah, and it's so funny you bring up Mario because, like I said, I've done well over 70 of these trainings, and Mario is always recognized, always, because like you said, he brings you joy. So when you go back up to the floor, you feel like you can spread that joy to others.
Yeah.
And he's so consistent, it does not matter who he speaks to. What he does so well, and we'll get into kind greeting, is that he connects with you. You said, I thought he just made me feel special, but he does it so well. He's in the moment and fully present with everybody. So he's just one of them. And you can see his smiling eyes through the mask. It's just amazing. I need to go give him some Trojan points because he's become a celebrity in this training.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Yeah, go ahead. Jessica, you mentioned the valet team. And they're always so friendly. And yes, they absolutely are. And this is just a nugget that you might appreciate is one of the valet team members saw a doctor choking at that coffee bar about a month ago now. And he actually went up and did the Heimlich and saved him. So that, you never know what's going to happen, but absolutely the valet team is truly amazing and always smiling. Okay, anybody else? Anybody else want to speak? All right. Well, we can move on. We just know that these people, they embody the known and what that does for us, and most of them don't even see patients. No, a lot of them do, but everybody brings something and they just do such an amazing job. And what makes them special, and all of us and all of you, I'm sure, is the consistency. That's what this is all about. It's really the consistency and that courtesy and respect and listening and explaining clearly and the authenticity in our concern for others. That's the difference with any of these people, right? So we think of our known today, and just a brief question, if anybody wants to take a stab at this. How do you use today known service standards in your interactions, probably more with like each other or other departments? Because I know you don't deal as much with patients and families until they go to sleep, the patients, but how do you practice the known standards? What is it that makes you the Mario or the Addie or the Nora or the people you saw on that flight? What is it you do that makes a difference? Just a couple of responses. Anybody want to talk, speak up, or use the chat? Anybody?
No.
I'll just take one.
Oh. So
okay.
Robin put on the chat, treat others the way that you want to be treated.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the best model of all. That's the best model of all. If you know what makes you feel good, then treat others that way, because obviously it will probably be making them feel well too. So that's a great one. That's totally embodying the known. If you can just use yourself as your N of one to know what brings you the most joy in how others treat you. I love it. So when we think of kind greeting, it's really the kindness. It's really the kindness in the greeting. You know, you probably all walk in early mornings, or maybe maybe you're part of the evening shift, but you walk in and you know you get your assignments and you're ready to go, but stopping and taking the minute to have that kind greeting and smiling when you're speaking. You know, we're all wearing masks. Well, you've always worn masks, but you know, you can see a smile. You can see a smile when you're speaking. You can hear a smile when you're talking on the phone, and clearly the smiling eyes make a difference. And maintaining that eye contact. Using, you know, your colleagues' names when addressing them. And these are just really putting the kindness back in the greeting. My boss talks about Subway. You walk into Subway, they say, "Welcome to Subway. Welcome to Subway. How are you doing?" But she says the authenticity isn't really sincere. So just by having a little bit of that kindness, and you can do that through your body language with a smile and tone of voice. And those two, body language and tone of voice, account for over 90% of communication. So it brings that approachability in, and it brings that willingness to, you know, be the team that you are. So kind greeting is so important. Then we go into noticing needs. And again, the OR is unique. So I just love, I mean, here's a laundry list. And notice needs is really about anticipating and acknowledging the needs that might show up when you walk into a room, the needs of your colleagues, the needs of what's going on. What might be a need that you would notice in your role? What might be a need? Anything come to mind? Thinking about what it is you notice when you're in your job, in the rooms.
I can, I guess, give some input. If everybody's shy, I think, you know, staff do recognize when their colleagues need help, right? If like they see surgical tech kind of like walking fast in the hallway and somebody sees them and say, "Hey, do you need something?" Then, you know, they're always trying to help each other out, right? Because we're trying to improve our turnovers or on-time starts. So
yes,
they're always willing to help when they see that somebody is in a rush.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great one. And you're always in a rush. You're always in a rush. But what I loved about that is like recognizing their body language so that you know if somebody is stressed, or offering that help. And really, that's what creates a fabulous team, is being able to make sure we don't have a weak link there, that we are harmonious and creating that and noticing needs of others. So whether it's your job or not, you can help with whatever need might be there, right? And then we talk about owning it. So it's about noticing the need, but it's also then taking issue into our own hands and empowering ourselves to do the best to resolve a situation. It's really about acknowledging issues that might surface. Make the concerns of others your own concern, like we just talked about. If there's a need you notice, help with it. Whatever it might be, really putting your own signature on the service you deliver, and the empowerment that you can do what's needed to make that difference. And when I think about owning it, I think about communication, because communication is something we clearly own, and communication was all about our key drivers. And so often where the hiccup comes in is that our intent is usually so pure, but our impact may be interpreted differently. So we always judge ourselves by our intentions, like, well, I don't know why they didn't understand it. I said it right. But others judge us by how they interpret it. And it could look like this. You know, people who say these words mean well. Hopefully, you know, I'll try to get there. To be honest, you know, hey, it's our policy. The truth is, calm down, you know, calm down. We'll get to it. Yes, but, and well, like I said, you know, those people saying that, their intent is right. However, the way it can be interpreted looks more like this. You know, if a team member says, you know, as soon as possible, you may hear it as, you know, when I get around to it, or hopefully becomes, who really knows? And I'll try becomes, not sure I can do it, no promises. So when we think about it, that goes back to the listening to understand. Seek first to understand. So make sure that when you're saying something, that what you're saying is being heard in the same way that you intended it to be heard. And there's other ways of saying things, right? So when we think of, other ways, instead of saying, well, I'm not sure, or I don't know, or no, or that's not my job, those close conversations, those close communication, and all of a sudden people don't feel as safe. They don't feel like they want to approach you again because they just feel shut down. So other responses that might be better, because again, if over 90% is tone of voice and body language, the other percent is how you choose your words. And I don't know, you clearly might not know, but by saying, you know what, please allow me to find out for you, or let me see what I can do. That opens that channel. That makes it like, oh, great. Somebody's willing to at least take me to the next step so I know what to do. Or no becomes, you know what, we don't do that. But what we could do is, or what I can do is, or that's not my job. Again, noticing needs, that's not my job might be, you know what, I'm going to find somebody who can better help you. So just think about the words you choose. And again, going back to, you're in small rooms, you're working as teams, and what can be said that will create that better experience. Not necessarily just for the patient, of course, but clearly for each other. Clearly when you're talking to other departments, when you're working in the hallways, when you're dealing with materials management, or whatever roles in there, with the tech, with the nurse, with the physician. Think about how you can bridge that so the intent and the impact can match. And that's really the goal. So, sometimes we have difficult situations, and I know you don't deal as much with patients because you're putting them to sleep, but you have behaviors across an organization, and you might be thinking, you know what, that person's mad at me because I did something wrong. And quite honestly, it's not usually like that. It's the person might be mad because they're frustrated by a situation. So an easy way to neutralize that is called the blameless apology. And why it's called a blameless apology, because a blaming apology sounds so different. You can say, you know what, sorry I'm late in covering you for break, but it's a zoo out there. Or you know what, I'll try to get that to you. I'm sorry, I couldn't get that to you earlier, but you know what? They just didn't send it up in time. Those are blaming apologies. A blameless apology is when you do not place blame on anybody or accept blame, but rather you are sorry for an experience. So it may sound like, you know what? I'm sorry that I wasn't here earlier. That must have, I'm sure you want to get to break. Or I'm sorry we weren't able to get this tool up 15 minutes ago. It must have been frustrating, and thank you for making a difference. Or something like that, but it's based on their experience. It's based on them, not the why. And that sometimes helps. Those magic words of I'm sorry without blaming can clearly make a difference. We can also set our own identity boundaries and personal boundaries. And when we see a behavior, we try to associate where it's coming from. Is it a personal zone, a professional zone, or a situational zone? And a personal zone may be something that you're getting a personal judgment from somebody that just doesn't sound right. Like somebody could say, well, you're incompetent. Well, we know that doesn't sound well, and we know none of us in that OR, or hopefully the work I'm doing, feels like we're incompetent. But somebody could be very frustrated or angry, and that's why that comment's coming. So how do we digest it and make sure it doesn't escalate so that it comes out of control? Essentially, we stop. We know that it's now raising the hair on the back of our neck, so we detach ourselves from that personal sensation. We visualize, okay, where's that comment coming from? And we try to understand that it's probably not that we're incompetent. They're just frustrated, and that's the way they're expressing it. And then we redirect it. So let's just say it's a team member. It may be, well, I doubt any team member is going to say you're incompetent, but they might say something like, gosh, you're late again. And you may just stop and be able to say, you know what? I'm sorry this is frustrating for you, but let's move forward so we can get into the procedure. Or, you know what, I'm I'm sorry, this was not what you expected, but let's see what we can do. But if somebody continues to have this behavior, you can stop and say, you know what? I'm sorry, I want to help you, but we really need to change the behavior before we can move forward. That's setting your own boundary. So you raise the self-awareness to somebody else that what they're saying or what they're creating is not appropriate, right? And again, know that when these escalations get out of control, they can move up to the next level they can move up to the next level. But we try to have a professional conversation there so that it doesn't triangulate and become a bigger discussion at the water cooler, right? So we just try to frame it out. So it's, I'm sorry you've experienced this. Let's see what we can do to move forward. Or, and again, I'm sorry, this isn't what you expected. It may be any of those.
Wait, Roslyn, just
Yes.
I guess quick question or clarification. Like, would you say that for the most part, the challenges are not necessarily personal, that there's like other underlying issues with the other person as to why they may be frustrated, right?
Absolutely. That's what I said. They aren't really feeling we're incompetent, but what's coming out of their mouth is saying that. But it may be they had a horrible morning at home, so they're angry about something. And so we're just adding to that. Think about it. We call it, and I know I don't want to run out of time, but we call it the pinch to crunch. You've had a lot of pinches. You've been in now 3 cases. In every case, there's been something that has happened. So by the 4th case, you're now in a crunch. It's like, I'm done. And so instead of saying something like, gosh, I'm sorry you're frustrated by this. Well, you might just say, my God, you're just incompetent. And so that's exactly what happens. You get to a point where there's so many pinches that you just crunch, but it's not usually intended. What is being said is coming out of anger and frustration. It's usually not intended. So the intent is different than how it's landing, but that still doesn't excuse it, but we just try to redirect it so it doesn't continue on. We try to put our empathy hat on for a minute and then and be able to just say, okay, sorry we're having this experience, or sorry this is so frustrating. Let's move forward, see what we can do. If you need to have that conversation later in the day with that person because it totally was inappropriate, that's the time to do it. Does that answer the question, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Okay, true. All right. The next thing may be somebody's challenging a protocol or policy, such as, you know what, I've worked with that doctor now for 2 years, and this is just how we do it. And somebody new coming in learned a different way, or maybe you've got a traveler coming in and they're just setting up differently. So somebody might be challenging a protocol or something. And instead of, again, getting it into an escalation, like, this is just not how we do it. It might be something like, you know what? I can understand this is frustrating, but this is our protocol and this is, to ensure the safety of our patient, or to ensure that we move forward, or whatever it might be. But instead of trying to escalate it, and what's on the screen is probably not a great example because it's about patients, but it may be that somebody's challenging something you set up, and maybe it's because you're new in that room or new on that team or whatever it is, and maybe a doctor likes it done a certain way, and so you're doing it in the way so you can just say, I'm sorry this might be frustrating because this isn't how you might do it all the time, but this is done because we're creating a better experience based on what's been asked, or whatever it is. Again, going back to I'm sorry you're frustrated. I'm sorry this doesn't feel right to you. I'm sorry that it's a difficult experience, but it's basically because . So it explains a little bit of the why. And then most of our cases are situational. And it's, again, I've been waiting too long. Where have you been? We've been in the room. We were supposed to start 15 minutes ago. It could be any of those. So you just reflect on where that comment's coming from. Is it the doctor? Is it the team lead, tech? And you try to understand it from their perspective. You filter out what's in your control and what's not in your control. And then you communicate what you can do versus what you can't do. This may be, when you're being asked by another department for something. So you just go back and understand it from their perspective and really try to filter it on what you can do and how you communicate what you can or cannot do. So just think about, and these slides are available to you, Jennifer. I think I sent them. You may just paste one of these up in the break room and just think through these at huddles or at meetings and be able to say, okay, what's been on our mind? What happened over the last week that we want to dissect a little further? Because I think by looking at these and practicing it, it really does help us. Okay, so now we do have, well, wowing them. I'm going to just wow you for a minute. Thank you for all you do. You know what? I had a husband that was 20 years in and out of the OR at Keck, and I got to tell you that every time that he went in, my heart sank, and every time he came out, it would bring me joy again. So thank you for all the work you did in keeping him so well taken care of for 20 years. So I just want to wow you for a minute and know that I know the difference you make. And also congratulations on your celebratory week. So just wowing them is really about 1 degree of difference in everything you do, wowing your colleagues, wowing the whatever you do makes such a difference on those others that you impact each and every day. So just think about that 1 degree of difference in what you do and how you do it. That can create that wow. And personally, I think that consistency in the known, if we really do it on every interaction, every time, clearly we will wow across the organization. And then next steps is all about closing the loops. It's all about making sure our communication, what we started with is what we end with, that we are just in lockstep with ensuring all action and follow-up items have been done, smiling and thank everybody. That's really what next steps is about. So I'm going to go into a case study because I have 4 minutes left, and it's important that we really model out the known. So, I'm just going to read this, and then I would love your input. You're relatively new to the organization and had a great mentor. She's on vacation, and you needed some guidance from a team member with a specific patient, or just maybe a specific case. You approached your colleague who has more experience and asked for help. She stated she did not have time to help you, but check back later. You needed to ensure the room was set up correctly, so needed additional information sooner than later. You let her know this was important and asked if she could provide some quick guidance. She abruptly stated she did not have time and to do my best, as I should know by now, or find someone else who could help. All right, so what known behaviors here could have been applied in this scenario to create a better colleague-to-colleague experience? And just think about the scenarios on a daily basis or on a case-by-case basis where something, maybe not exact to this, but something like this could happen. What known behaviors could have been done to create a better experience? So I'm going to open it up to you folks. What could have been done here? Again, going back to kind greeting, notice needs, own it, wow them, or next steps.
I think noticing the needs would be a good one here.
Okay, yeah. And noticing a needs, such as knowing that that person needed something right away. Okay, and then how might you have owned that? How might you have owned that differently than, or could you? I know you're in rush cases all the time, so what could have been done differently once you noticed it?
I think owning it would, it doesn't take long to say, oh, okay, you need help, I'm busy, but let's go and talk to the charge nurse and see if there's somebody available to help you. I mean, that takes less than a minute to, to find the charge nurse.
Right. And that's great, Jennifer, because it's about noticing the need first and the kindness in letting them know that I cannot help you right now. I'm really busy. Going back to the kindness, but let me find somebody who might be able to help you, and then running to the charge nurse or contacting them. Absolutely. Because again, going back to our communication, this really shut it down. This is a new person who doesn't know enough and clearly needed to be sure she was doing things right. Whether she should have known it by then or not, that wasn't the situation here. It's about making sure that we bridged it so that she could get the right help she needed, whether it was from us or not. And I think that's the moment of truth when we think about, are we doing that? Are we making sure that we have that kindness in how we say back, I can't help you right now, but I want to find somebody who can, versus, that's not my job, or, check back with me later. Just think of what's the kindness and how you would handle a situation like that. And then secondly, I have one more. Let's see, we're at 7:45. So Jennifer, I don't want to.
No, that's fine. You can finish this last scenario. It's okay. Yeah.
So this is an employee from another department. Here we are, materials management, PACU, wherever it might be, needed to borrow some small equipment for an event taking place later that day. So just think about, it may have been whatever department that could happen. Maybe they were doing an in-service and they needed to borrow something, right? So he called another department asking for the equipment and was told he needed to enter a service request on the intranet. The item was needed immediately. There was really no computer nearby to place the request. Nonetheless, the employee still received pushback from the other department to follow the official request process. Both parties were so frustrated, so they sent these, finger pointing emails and copied senior leadership. So the question is, how do you think this internal customer felt in this situation? How do you think that customer who was just asking for a piece of equipment felt? And then secondly, how would you have responded or handled the situation using some of our known standards? What might you have done differently in a situation like this? And then anything come to mind?
Nobody, this happens frequently at the front desk.
Yeah, right.
So, I know what my staff do, and we do. So the question is like how the other person felt. I think they probably felt frustrated, right? Like, oh, I'm just here borrowing something so I can take care of a patient, and you're not lending me what I need at the moment. If I could take it a step further, what I've seen my staff do is say, okay, we'll give it to you right now. However, in the future, this is the process.
I love that.
Yeah. And I've seen it. I'm not making it up. I've seen it with our secretaries because, like I said, this happens frequently.
Yes. And the second one, because you're exactly right, that shut down communication and it escalated it to a point now it's going to senior leadership. Really? So it's about, could that person have been a little more generous with their time and said, hey, like you said, this is our process for the next time, but right now I'm going to fill out the form for you because I know you need this immediately, but this is the process and I'll send you the link. So for future, you can do that. Just so, again, putting the kindness back in it, noticing a need and guiding them through it. And by doing that, you probably wowed them and they were able to move it on and their next steps were easy, right? So just think about the difference you make in doing that, because our team approach is to communication and collaboration, having what is needed for meaningful work, building respect and dignity, and really making a difference in those key drivers and making a difference by embodying the known in every interaction, every time. So, we all live in roles, but our role is basically a title, and it's a great title, and you make such a difference. Without you, we wouldn't have an organization. But at the end of the day, when we're going back to that gratitude, you think about, what difference did I make today? And I did make a difference by, or I empowered, I do have the power to make a difference by, and I'm responsible for great experience with my colleagues and the others people I serve. So just think about that, and then think about the owning the known. And I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And Jennifer, back to you.
Thank you for facilitating this meeting for us, Rosalind. I think, the team is going to take a lot from this and digest it, and probably will invite you for like just additional sessions because it's really informative. Our team is a mix of people that have been here a long time who's, was here for the initial training, and then another half that are like fairly new. So this is all great information.
Well, super. And look forward to it. I do. I worked with the team for several months and it was so much fun on Fridays. We had a lot of laughs. So anyway, whatever you need, whenever. All right. Thank you. And have a Friday, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.